Welcome to Truth About Dating, where meaningful discussions lead to beneficial results. And today, I have two extraordinary women with me, Sarah Lee Belt and Mary Burke from the Dating Playbook Podcast. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here.
Thank you for having us. We're excited.
So excited.
Well, let's just jump right into it for the sake of time. I just want to know a little bit and just a brief intro on how you two met and what started the Dating Playbook Podcast.
Oh man, like when people ask this, how did we meet? I'm always hesitant to answer. Because actually, we met through a mutual friend and now we're not friends with her anymore. Or she's not friends with us. Yeah. So we kind of just met. I might answer the first part, Mary, and then if you want to answer the second part, because you're always so fabulous at the second answer. But we kind of met because we're like massively into personal development, and we had a mutual friend who was equally into the same personal development field that we were in, and she was fabulous and we loved her separately, and then we kind of all came together because we're all just really like-minded women. And immediately Mary and I were just like, oh, there's something about this girl. And actually I think we really became friends when I was going through a breakup, and like literally we just moved houses, and then there was a bit of upset with my ex-boyfriend, and I was struggling for hours to deal with this, and I was trying to call this other friend to like get some coaching and get some support, and it was like midnight, so she was in bed, and then Mary texted, and I was like, oh, maybe Mary can support me. And an hour or two later, finally she had me have a breakthrough, and then that was it, just bonded for life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Soul friends. Honestly, we've got shared brain, shared hearts. Honestly, it's crazy.
That's great. I feel like it's hard to find those, mutual individuals who really understand where you're coming from and your interests. So to me, that's fantastic. And so how long have you guys been running the Dating Playbook Podcast for?
Oh my goodness. So when I first became single, I've been in a long-term relationship for over 10 years. And I hadn't, because I've been at uni, I hadn't ever then had to do online dating. Oh my goodness. I could not believe the amount of resignation and upset that there was in online dating. And I'm a serial entrepreneur, like Little Miss Adventure. I was like, right, there's something I can do about this. I'm going to set up some singles dating events. They didn't go very well. It was very tricky to get people to come, especially men. But I always had this passion and desire to want to change the face of dating. Anytime I spoke to anyone who was single, it was the same complaints, really like disheartened, and they lost that sparkle of the one I want to spend the rest of my life with is there. He's just waiting for me to find him, and vice versa. And then when Sarah and I became friends, we like she said, we were coaching each other in our single adventures, and we were just on holiday actually in Australia visiting her family. And we were like, should we do a podcast about this and actually go and make a difference in the world, and really support people in their dating adventures, falling in love with themselves while they're on the way to find the person they want to spend their future with and create that partnership with. So she was like, so we came back, had a planning session, and then we launched in February last year. So it's been a roller coaster since then.
That sounds like it. That's so true. I totally hear what you're saying in terms of trying to get men on board with the whole aspect of dating and whatnot, and I get it. Men, we're a little bit shy, especially when it comes to this, and especially admitting that we need help or that we need push in the right direction. That is for sure. Well, speaking of that, I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts on social media and how they've influenced people's perception in terms of, the perception people have about dating and long-term dating, especially online? It almost seems as though it's kind of glorified to an extent to have a significant other instead of being single.
Oh my goodness. Hashtag relationship goals.
Hashtag bae.
At the minute, especially like with the current situation that the world finds themselves in, I think that it's quite easy for you to scroll through your Facebook feeds, TikTok, Instagram, and just see a real picture perfect view of people's relationships. And oftentimes that picture speaks to things that are missing for you in your life and the relationship that you're looking to create and find someone to share in. And I think that then it can kind of have your mindset be really affected, because then you think it's such a far away thing. Like, you start thinking about lack and not abundance. And it can just be really tricky, especially when it is always that picture perfect #relationship goals.
That's
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think too, like it's oh man, like no one seems to be willing to do the work. Like we want to get labels like exclusivity, boyfriend, girlfriend. We want to have Instagram pictures, but no one wants to do or have the conversations that are really required to have the partnership.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then and what I think with online dating, that's majority of how I do my dating.
Yeah.
As soon as there's a bump in the road, I'm out. Or as
Yep.
soon as there's a bump in the road, there's a decision that's made, like, oh, this isn't quite right, or she's not the one, or she's too much work. And then not being willing to have the conversation, partly because, oh, I could just get back and swipe, swipe, swipe and get a new match, can't I? But equally, part of that is just, we don't have the tools to communicate. We haven't been taught how to do that. And people just kind of want the fantasy version, not the actual reality of doing the work, creating the partnership.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree with you. I think that's one of the biggest thing. And communication. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people, and I've responded to a lot of questions on Facebook. And the one common theme that people have is they're like, well, I need this from a partner, or I'm looking for this or that. And I go, well, have you really sat down and have you thought about what you're looking for in an ideal partner? Do you have what it takes to get that person? And then once you're there, are, like you said, are you willing to work for it and try to find that? I find that a lot of people almost use kind of dating apps as an excuse to kind of jump around a lot sometimes. And they feel like, oh, well, it's just an effort. And I'm always like, well, that a good relationship is going to take effort. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, we'd all be in relationships and we'd all have these picture perfect, Instagram #relationship goal, Instagram posts and stuff. But it takes work. And I think that's, to me, I think, though, that's the fascinating part about it. We are all from different parts of life in different walks of life. And as a result, it's all about finding, well, what person matches with me? Is there something that this person has that intrigues me? I feel like attraction is such an interesting thing because, as we know, yes, we can be naturally attracted physically to someone right away, but I think there's always that other part that comes in later on once you get to know someone a little bit and you start to go, well, wow, I didn't know this person likes this, or I didn't know that they were like that. Now my mindset has kind of shifted a little bit more because I'm like, wow, this person's even more attractive than I originally anticipated, or the opposite.
Well, that's really interesting because I was having this conversation recently about the foundation of a partnership is friendship.
Yes.
And like, how often are we investing or seeing the person that we're dating as the friend first? Because I know when I date, like, I do not interact with those men the way that I interact with Mary. Like, I know that Mary's next level. Next Mary's my ride or die girl, right? But, I know that I don't interact with them the same way. It's not, unless it's intentional, it's not necessarily friendship first. It's partner first. But actually, if I've got a friendship foundation, we can always come back to that. And then I would treat you how I want to be treated. Because that's the ultimate foundation of friendship, right? Like, treat each other like you want to be treated, not with conditions attached because you're my boyfriend.
100%.
Yeah, and I definitely think, like, to add into your bit when you said people kind of get into dating, we get attracted first, and then we're either like, oh, you're more attractive or less attractive. And I think that's really knowing and defining your values, that you can say, oh yeah, we've got a values match or a values mismatch. So I think, like you said, it's really important to take that time out before, when you're getting ready to start dating, to actually look at, what it is that you want from your partner, who you're going to be to attract that kind of partner and maintain that kind of a relationship. And then what core values do you both share and going to create your future on?
100%. I mean, I think it's so funny because a common thing that I get is I'll post videos. I have some YouTube videos and Instagram. People are always surprised when they find out that dating coaches are single, as if we have to be in a relationship. We're just normal people.
Like,
Like,
haven't figured out.
We're just normal people, just like everyone else. I always make the distinction, especially for people. I say, yes, I'm a dating coach, but I specialize in the initial parts and actually meeting individuals and getting them to that point where they can get the confidence, where we do the beginning work that they need to really understand, are there past traumas? Or is there anything that's really holding them back in terms of limiting beliefs that they have about dating? And then moving them forward to a point where they can feel comfortable going on those dates, getting on those, those Zoom dates and all of that nowadays. So the last question I have for you two, Are there any key pieces of information that you've learned in your time in dating that you like to impart upon others, or feel that they should know and that they're kind of missing out in terms of dating?
So for me, I think it's just enjoy the adventure. I think we can get so caught up on, oh, I want to be in a relationship, I want to be in the relationship. You put all this pressure on, and then everybody just doesn't have fun. I'm like, just, dating is an adventure. Have fun, live it. This is the single chapter of your book where you're single. It's still a chapter, like live it. You want to create those memories, have those awesome adventures. And as you're going along, you're going to find out about yourself along the way. So the biggest thing you're going to get is falling in love with yourself and knowing who you are. So yeah, I think that's my piece.
I love that. And I think for me, it's definitely use it as an exploration of self, and like really be honest with yourself. So one of the things that is massive in my life now is someone else's opinions on what should be happening in my life, how I should be dating, what I should be wanting from dating. But actually there's 100 million different ways that you could interact with people and that you could want to date or want to create for your future. It doesn't just have to be one person for the rest of your life and 2.4 kids in a house. There's so many, as a human, there's so many different possibilities that call to us and that speak to us, and what's right for me is not going to be right for you, but might be right for the next person or not for the next person. Just be open to explore and be honest with yourself and then with other people about what you want now or what you want to create now, because whatever you want, whether it's the quote unquote norm or not, is perfect and wonderful because it's true to who you are.
Yeah, no, you said that perfectly. I feel like in terms of being rushed, I think a lot of people nowadays want to rush into a relationship without actually doing the proper work necessary to love themselves, as you're saying, and to really feel as though, okay, I'm good with myself. I would love to have another person, and it would be an extension, and it would, I would say, bring my life to another level to an extent, but I would be okay without it. And I think that's where people kind of run into that issue, especially with dating, because they're like, well, they meet someone, and we kind of have this fantasy. I was actually listening to a few of your podcasts where you talk about, the fantasy versus the reality of it. And
I love that concept. Trademark. Bam.
Idea, they get a little idea, and all of a sudden, well, I think this person is going to be like that. And it's like, well, we made that idea up that this person is going to be perfect.
Yes. And then when they're not that way, we get mad at them because they're not that way. Yes. I never told you I was that way. You told me I was that way.
Exactly. And so I think it's so interesting because I think nowadays, kind of to riff off what you were saying, I think a lot of people don't really use their intuition as much. Can you guys tell me, do you believe that intuition plays a major part in dating? Whether you think that someone is a good fit for you. Oftentimes people know whether something or someone is right or wrong, but they go against it. They go, I'm gonna look past it. I'm gonna look past the red flag, even though I know in my mind that this may not work out.
Man. And I feel like you're talking to me now because I've just been in that experience.
Oh my God.
But we do. And I think, Mary gave me a little bit of coaching after this completed for me and along the way. And, I knew in my heart that it wasn't right and that it wasn't what was meant for me. And there were some elements that I really enjoyed about it, which is what, one of the things that I kept going back for. But one of the reasons that I continued on was this little sneaky thought of, well, you're in that next level. You're now exclusive with him. So if you don't make it work here, there'll never be anyone else. Yeah. So, I don't want to go backwards to like being single. I kind of like this little bit of status here, which is not great to, acknowledge, but that's what was going on for me. So even me, who's like, been dating for years, has coaching, is a coach, has a podcast, that stuff still happens. And it's just part of the human condition. But the goal is, or the game is, really practice being present to your intuition. Like you said, I knew, and then being brave enough to act on it.
Yes.
Or at least being honest about, do you know what? I know this isn't right, but I'm choosing to do it anyways, rather than trying to make it something that it's not. Because that's when it becomes icky, right? Like that's when the expectations and my fantasy comes in. You're meant to be this way. No, man, like we're just not a match. And I know that.
100%.
And I think it's so true, because what you say is what happens is you live into that fantasy for the future. Like, oh, it
Mhm.
will always be this way, because you've got that future that you're trying to live into, and you're forgetting to look at actually what is the reality right now? What is the feedback that that other person that I'm dating is giving to me? And then also it comes back again to knowing, your boundaries and your values and what you're after, so that you can check in and listen. Because I think sometimes until you've got that flat for yourself, that intuition, you're a bit unsure. Is that
Yeah.
intuition? Is that a feeling? Is that a sense? Because my
Yes.
brain is telling me something else about this fantasy. So
Mhm.
again, that's where it goes to
Yeah.
going to work on yourself as well.
Definitely, and I think if more people listen to their intuition, I think they would be steered in the right direction. I always say, if you listen to your intuition, you can't be steered wrong, because
Yeah.
it's always going to know beforehand. That's your subconscious brain being able to pick up on something that you may not be able to figure out right away, but you'll eventually see down the line. And I think the whole idea of scarcity, that's a big thing that I think plagues a lot of people. I mean, I've been in that mindset before,
Yeah.
where you're with someone for a bit and you're like, this is fantastic, I love this, you're giving them your all, and then at the same time it may not work out. You go, oh no, you're like, now I gotta start all over again. And it is a little bit of a grind, but I think that's what makes dating what it is.
Yeah.
I think if we weren't all looking to improve ourselves and really to get to the next level, then I don't think that we would really be as open to being in the dating world, especially.
Absolutely. And I think one of the, like you just really touched on, one of the things that would be beneficial for us as society and as humans is to re-look at this idea of success in relationships.
Hmm.
Because I've been in two long-term relationships, 10 years and 5 years. And obviously I'm single now, so they didn't work, quote unquote.
Hmm.
Actually, I had a brilliant time with both of those men. It
Yeah.
wasn't always great, but I learned a lot. We had brilliant adventures. We had amazing intimacy. Like, that's success.
Yeah.
But we think, oh, we broke up. Even if you look at the word broke up, it's broken.
Yes.
Yeah, like, if we can recondition ourselves to look at however long you spend with someone is a success, and it's to be honored and celebrated.
Mhm.
And you know what? We just decided not to see each other. So now I get to have a different adventure
Yes.
in that. I think that would definitely help us as humans to be able to say, you know what, this adventure no longer works for me, or isn't serving me, or isn't what I wanted it to be. So I'm going to move on to the next adventure, and that's okay. That doesn't mean anything about you. I honor you. I love you. I respect you. I honor and love my respect myself. So let's just move on.
100%. I feel like a lot of people know when they're in the wrong thing, and they just stay in it just because
Yeah.
of that, whether it be
Yeah.
societal norms, whether it be their
Yeah.
own pressure, like, oh, I had this idea. I mean, especially so in the States, if you go anywhere towards the South, it's very religious, and they get married really young. They get married,
Mm.
18, they start having kids, and they think that everything works out. But if it doesn't, all of a sudden they feel like, oh, I failed. Like, my life should have been perfect. I should have had that white picket fence and everything that you
Yeah.
were talking about. But in reality, it's like, no, it's like,
Yeah.
how would you have known? And there
Yeah.
is no real way to
Yeah.
tell whether it was going to work out to the end of time or not. And being okay with that, and being able to realize that, hey, if I'm not in something good, it's okay to start over again, and to
Mm.
go to a new adventure, or to figure out what you want in life,
Yeah.
because life is too short to be in something that's terrible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. Like, my life should have been perfect. Who said a marriage and kids and a white picket fence was perfect? And don't even get us started on religion and church. Right,
Exactly.
Mary?
Exactly. It's crazy, because I do feel that nowadays, what I'm noticing in trends more so than ever, is that people are starting to embrace being single now. Whereas it used to be, oh my gosh, you're single, okay, well, we need to set you up with someone. I think there's a lot of people, both men and women, kind of being rethinking things and going, I'm okay being by myself. I don't mind going, I'll go to a restaurant by myself. I'll go travel by myself. I'll go experience things. And, if I meet someone along the way, then perfect. But if not, it's not saying it's a failure at all, because I mean, I'm okay with myself, and I'm being, I guess, the best version of myself without having any hindrance, without worrying anything, but being open to it. And I think that's the biggest thing, being open. A lot of people shut themselves off right away. They go, I can only have one or the other. I can only be, an independent woman, or I can only be an independent man, nobody else. This is it. or it's like, okay, well, I can only be a relationship. Well, maybe there's a big mixture of both. You can have both and be okay. You can have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's about, you want to go out and make a great life, and when you're in a partnership with someone else, they just make it greater.
Yes.
Like, it's just elevation. Being in that relationship is just an elevation of that, of your life.
100%. And I think if you're not looking at it that way, I think you're definitely going to have a hard time realizing in the long run that, you know, it's okay. These things, like we both said, like we've all said in this discussion, it's okay to do things your own way. And if things don't work out, you didn't lose anything, you only gained. I feel like every experience, I always live my life by this motto. I say, you know, we come across people in our lives for certain reasons, and you may not know right away, but at some point you will, and you'll think back and you'll go, wow, okay, so this is why this person came across my life. You know, kind of how you two met. You know, you met that third person, they introduced you, and although you may not be talking to them, it's still, you guys are now connected. You guys started the podcast, and I've had a lot of synchronicity and moments in my life where I've met one person and it's led to the next. And I think if I didn't have those things, I would never be able to get to the point that I'm at today. It's, you know, everything that I did to get to you led me here.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. All big
Well,
part
thank you guys so much for this podcast, because this has been fantastic. I know it's been a short one, but we'll definitely have to do it again. And to all the viewers and all the listeners, I will link all of the information that is necessary and needed, because you need to listen to the Dating Playbook Podcast. It's fantastic. I love it. They have great personalities, and it is such a trip. Thank you two so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having us. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you, the lion.